Alrighty, last question for this section. Example 7, okay? So again, our first thing that we need to do is make sure that our 0 is on the right-hand side. So we need to move this entire fraction to the other side. Our fraction is positive, so I'm going to subtract it to the other side. And then write our same inequality and write a 0. Once we have done that, we are able to put our box for our function. So we have our f of x, and then we determine whether it is positive or negative. It says greater than 0, so that is going to be positive. So we only want positive intervals. Once you have determined whether it's positive or negative, you are able to change that inequality sign to an equal sign. And we already know how to solve these types of problems. First thing that we do is we make everything a fraction. So I'll put this over 1. We put parentheses around our parts and we factor if possible. We can't factor anything out of any of these, so I'm going to go ahead and write parentheses for all of the ones that have parts. And then we need to make the denominators the same. This denominator has x plus 4, this one has x minus 5, and this one has a 1. So I'm going to rewrite them real quick and leave a little bit of space so we can kind of add this in. And then go back in and fill that in, okay? So, over here, we are missing x minus 5 on the bottom. So if you do it to the bottom, you also have to do it to the top. On the bottom here, we're missing our x plus 4, so we do x plus 4. And if you do it on the bottom, you also have to do it on the top. And here, this one is missing both x minus 5 and x plus 4, okay? X minus 5 and x plus 4. Cool. Once you have made the denominators the same, before you mark them out, you have to figure out what x cannot be. So we look inside of here, and x cannot be positive 5, and x cannot be negative 4. So because it cannot be those values, we are going to have to use parentheses. But when we find our other critical values, we're going to have brackets because of our inequality sign, okay? And now we're able to mark that out, okay? And now we go about solving this regularly. So here we're going to use our little magic foil, right? So we do x times x, which gives us x squared. X times negative 5, gives us negative 5x. And then negative 3x. And then negative 3 times negative 5 gives you positive 15. Okay, and then one thing that I would like to note here, this might be a little confusing. I'm not sure how you guys want to handle this negative. You could have distributed the negative up here and said negative x and negative 2. Or what you'll do first is foil it. So just how I foiled this first section here into this, and then tack that negative on. So maybe that's what we'll do since I've already written it like that, okay? So these two brackets, the brackets right here gives me this. We still have that minus there, and now I'm going to add the brackets and foil this. Does that make sense what I'm doing? Okay, so now when I foil this one, we get x squared plus 4x plus 2x plus 8, okay, and then that's equal to 0 because 0 times anything is 0, okay? To get rid of brackets or parentheses, we always check the power and distribute. Here, there's no power or nothing in the front, so we can just drop them, and then we can combine our like terms. So that's going to give us x squared minus 8x plus 15. Here, you can either combine your like terms first and get positive 6x, and then to get rid of your brackets, you check the power, there isn't one, and then we distribute this negative to all of our parts, so we get negative x squared and then negative 6x, and then we get negative 8 is equal to 0, okay? And then we can combine our like terms. Luckily for us, this x squared and this negative x squared end up canceling each other out, which makes our life a lot simpler. Okay, we can combine this negative 8 and negative 6x together. So 6 plus 6 is 12, 13, 14. So we get negative 14x And then we can combine our positive 15 and our negative 8 to give us positive 7 equal to 0, okay? We subtract this 7 on both sides, and we're left with negative 14x is equal to negative 7, okay? So now that negative 14 is connected to the x by multiplication, so to reverse that, we need to divide both sides by negative 14. Okay, so here we have x is equal to positive a half. Okay, so I need to write down some of the information that we found on this first board. Here, remember, we found that we have to use parentheses for x negative 4 and negative 5 because x cannot be those things. And then here we just solved this and got x is equal to a half. And because our equation has a line underneath, we're going to actually use brackets there, okay? And then I'm going to rewrite this line right here because that's where our box is located, and that's where we plug our numbers in between each interval, okay? So all I've done is written what we found previously, and then I added brackets here because of our interval, okay? Again, this box right here says that it's greater than or equal to 0, so that's going to be positive values only. So now we draw our line and we add all of our critical values. We have negative 4, we have a half, and we have 5. So we need to check between each of these intervals and then only take the positive ones, okay? And we are going to plug them into the box. Oops. Plug in box, okay? So if I pick a number between here, I'll use 1. Let me make these a little bit taller. I just kind of really like to distinguish between what I'm doing. Okay, so we can do 1. Here we have a negative and a positive, so we can do 0. Here we can do 6. And here we can do negative 5, okay? So we plug these into the box, not the original problem, and the box only shows up when there is a 0 on the right-hand side, okay? So when we plug in our 0 here, let's see what happens. So if we plug in 0, we get 0 minus 3, which gives us negative 3 over 0 plus 4, which would give us a positive 4. And then minus, if we do a 0 on top, we get 2 over 0 on the bottom, we get negative 5. So these two negatives right here are going to give us a positive. So we get plus 2 over 5. So you can either make the denominators the same here, or we can do 5 on top and on bottom, and we can do 4 on top and 4 on bottom, and kind of see what this gives us. So our denominator is going to be a 20, and then we just take all of this plus the sign, right? And that's going to give us negative 15 plus 8. That is going to give us a negative, okay? So that was for 0, right? So we get a negative here. I can finish it out if you want me to. It doesn't really matter. But yeah, so here we get a negative number. So this is negative. Again, you do not have to work this out by hand. Honestly, I would suggest not working it out by hand. I would just use your calculator, plug this whole thing in instead of X right answer, and then you can quickly plug in those other values, okay? So why don't you guys pause the video and see what you guys get for these other values, and then see if you're right. All right, so hopefully you paused it. If you didn't, I'm about to tell you the answer. Okay, so this one's going to be positive, this one's positive, and this one's negative, okay? Cool, so we only want the positive answers, so we want from here to here, and in between this interval, okay? So now if we were to write this in interval notation, That's going from negative infinity all the way to 4. And then starting at a half all the way to 5. So we have to look back at our brackets and parentheses to see. This was when we solved our inequality after we made it an equal sign, and because there's a line there, we use brackets. And then these are what makes our problem undefined, so we need to use parentheses for those. Okay, and that would be our final answer.